104.5 The Team, your home for New York Yankees baseball. Buster Olney, nice enough to join us today. I know very busy this time of year with the World Series traveling and all that. But Buster, let me put this in the most analytical terms I can. Why is Joe Girardi gone?
Look, I'm sorry that you had to suffer through this, right?
I feel like I'm a child of a divorce all of a sudden, Buster.
Well, and it definitely feels like what happened between Joe and the Yankees was like a marriage that had run out. And I guess you're going to go with Joe to another team, or are you going to stay with the Yankees? That's my question to you.
You know, I've got 41 years invested in the pinstripes. I got to stay.
Yeah, I was going to say. So you're not quite as wedded to Girardi as maybe you thought. And if the Yankees are in first place on May 15th, you're going to love the new manager, right?
Yeah, but I mean, you don't have to point it out yet. Just because it's true doesn't mean you should say it.
Well, you know, I mean, it definitely felt like during the year, and we talked about it earlier in October about how it just seemed like Joe was nearing the end of his run. You know, the Yankees internally, I think there's some concern about how tense Joe could be, about some of the pitching moves that he made. And so Brian Cashman, the Yankees general manager, made the recommendation to Hal Steinbrenner to change managers. From Joe's statement, he indicated that he would have preferred to stay. That was not something that he necessarily said as we went down the stretch. You can understand why. I mean, my goodness, he's got about 2 decades tied to the Yankees. But I really began to feel like this was inevitable as the year played out, and that the Yankees were looking for a different voice. 10 years of managing in New York is a long time.
Buster Olney with us right now, 104.5 The Team. You say that they're looking for a different voice. Do you feel they already have it?
I don't. I don't think they do. I think maybe, they certainly might have in mind of things they're looking for, the different traits. I think an understanding, a comfort level with analytics, an open-mindedness in working with analytics. And look, Joe eventually embraced it, but it was a process, and I think the next manager who comes in, it's not necessarily going to be that. It's going to be someone who right from the get-go is going to look at some of the statistics and how they use them and defensive positioning and be all over it and all in. I think it's going to be a younger manager, and I think after Joe, probably the next guy is going to be someone who's more easygoing, who just smiles more readily, who doesn't look really tense in the dugout. And I know from talking with sources that no question the players felt like that Joe was really, really tense, and it kind of drove him crazy on certain days.
Girardi's intense. It was inevitable it was going to end. So there was no way, even if they had gone to the World Series, that Girardi could have been back for the future?
I can't say that for sure. There's only one person who would know that for sure, and that would be Hal Steinbrenner. He was the one who ultimately, it's his decision whether or not to go along with the recommendation of Brian Cashman. But I do think that the recommendation of the general manager was going to be the same no matter how far they went in this offseason. Let's face it, guys. If you knew that Brian Cashman didn't believe in Girardi to the point of giving him another extension, he would have almost been derelict in his duty if he had just gone along with it, saying, well, you know what, we made the LCS, that's fine, let's go forward. If they had real concerns, they really needed to act on it.
That's a great point. Buster Olney with us right now, 104.5 The Team, making sense of the divorce between Joe Girardi and the New York Yankees. Oddly enough, Buster, I know you're probably as shocked as I am, they still play the World Series without the Yankees.
Oh, wait. I'm not that shocked because they've done it the last 8-9 years without them.
Oh,
just stick it right in, Levack. Get right to him. Yeah.
You're my best friend, Buster. When this series so far, pretty amazing in 2 games.
Well, that game 2 for me was the best non-elimination game that I've ever seen. I was at field level because I was waiting to go on the field to do the post-game interviews. And the swings of emotion that were going on. Marwin Gonzalez at the plate in the top of the 9th inning with the Astros down a run. The Dodgers with a 98-0 record when holding a lead after 8 innings this year. And there's Marwin Gonzalez, who hadn't driven in a run in the entire postseason, hitting a home run. And then all the home runs back and forth that followed, the swings of adrenaline, the swings of momentum. It really was amazing. And in the end, talking with George Springer right after the game, what was so cool was I asked him about, okay, what did you feel when your 2-run homer went over the right field wall? He couldn't even remember. Like, he was so swept up, and he said, I don't even know what I did. I don't know what I was thinking. That really, I think, reflected the experience of a lot of players, at least the Astros players. Probably there's some Dodger pitchers who knew exactly what they were thinking when the ball went over the wall repeatedly in the extra innings.
Series now goes to Houston, gets underway tonight. Why has Houston been so good at home?
Well, first off, I mean, the ballpark really suits their strengths. They hit a lot of home runs, and as much complaining as there is about Yankee Stadium in right field, the Crawford boxes in left field in Houston, that's the same. And I think, generally speaking, the Astros have been a team that doesn't strike out a lot. And so I think when they put the ball in play in their own park, they're rewarded for it. We saw in Game 6 and 7 of the American League Championship Series that the fans can be fired up. They can be excited. I had some of the Astros players tell me that it was the loudest that they had heard. And I'm assuming that for Games 3, 4, and 5, it'll be the same. It was a great sign for the Astros that George Springer, Marwin Gonzalez, who'd really been struggling, were able to turn around their postseasons with some adjustments at the plate in Game 2 of the World Series, and we'll see if that carries over.
Buster Olney with us right now on 104.5 The Team. Buster, when you look at this World Series, is this a must-win game for the Dodgers?
No, I'm kind of over the must-win thing, right? Hey, I think until you actually get to an elimination game, I don't want to talk about must-win anymore. It was interesting because A.J. Hinch, the Astros manager, who, by the way, is a model of the type of manager the Yankees are looking for. A.J. Hinch said after Game 1, Game 2 is a must-win game. And I was thinking to myself, no, that's not right. Because, quite literally, the Astros could lose Game 2, and then they could come home and have an opportunity to get back into the series. And I know this for a fact because when I was 14 years old, as a huge Dodger fan, 1978 World Series, the Yankees lose Games 1 and 2 in Dodger Stadium. I doubled down all my bets with classmates in the 8th grade in Randolph Union High School in Randolph, Vermont. And then, of course, what happened? The Dodgers swept the next 4. I lost my mind. I lost all my money. So, being must-win is never going to be something that I'll embrace until you get to a team right to the edge of elimination.
We'll go to the New York Mets. They hire a new manager, Mickey Callaway. What can Mets fans expect from him?
I think he's going to be great. This is someone who has a ton of confidence. He's got the sort of personality that rubs off on other people. Mickey's father was a civil engineer in the United States Army. And as soon as I heard that, my thought was, you know what, that's going to appeal to Sandy Alderson, who was a Marine, and that background and that level of organization, that devotion to leadership, I think is something which has really served Mickey well as he's been a pitching coach with the Indians. Terry Francona told me that he didn't know anything about Mickey Callaway until he was involved in the interview process for the pitching coach when Francona went back to the Indians in 2013. And during the postseason, when Mickey's name started to pop up with some of these jobs, I looked at Terry and I said, Mickey has the type of personality where sometimes with pitchers, pitching coaches, you feel like they only understand pitching. I said, Mickey has the personality that makes him seem more like a position player than a pitcher. And Terry looked at me, he goes, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I agree with that completely. And I'm sure that part of Mickey's personality was something that really stuck out for Sandy Alderson when they picked him. As you guys well know, the Mets had planned for a longer process for finding the next manager, but when they talked to Mickey, when they met with Mickey, when they got information on Mickey, they were so blown away that they just canceled the rest of it and just hired their guy.
Buster, you just when you said that the Mets were poised for a long, search for the manager, it just made me think: how long are we going to be waiting? You think for the Yankees to name a manager?
I think it'll be a few weeks. First off, they're conducting other business as well. They're digging into their post or off-season evaluation and getting ready for the winter market. But they're just starting this, and I think out of respect. Look, what you heard from people within the Yankee organization all through the postseason in recent days was Joe's a good guy. They really like Joe, and they talk about Joe's a good person. They just had gotten to a point where they didn't feel like that he was the right person to be the manager. I think out of deference for him until his situation was resolved, I don't think the Yankees have really dug down into this process and suddenly collated a list of 10, 12 different candidates they're ready to jump on. I really think they're starting from the first page in trying to find their next guy.
Buster, before we let you go, it's weird. Girardi gets to Game 7 of the ALCS. Farrell goes to the playoffs. Baker goes to the playoffs. Cubbies are in the playoffs. Now the Cubbies are getting rid of everybody who's not named Joe Madden. What's going on?
I do think that how accelerated everything seems in our society is having something to do with this. Social media has something to do with this. Dusty Baker manages the Nationals to 192 wins in 2 years, and that's not good enough, right? What have you done for me lately means literally what have you done for me in the last game. I think if the Nationals had won that Game 5, that Dusty would still be around. But that's the way it goes in this day and age, and people are looking to make changes. Look, a year ago, the Cubs, when they won that World Series over the Indians, we were thinking this is the beginning of a dynasty. This is a team that was going to roll forward. This year, they made it to the LCS, and they made all these staff changes. You mentioned Chris Bosio, their pitching coach. He's out. They bring in Jim Hickey, the pitching coach of the Tampa Bay Rays. They let go their hitting coach. They let go their third base coach. They bring in Brian Butterfield, the respected coach for the Red Sox. They bring in Chili Davis, who Theo Epstein had hired before for the Red Sox in their minor league system. I think it tells you a lot about the mindset of these teams, which I think probably reflects how their fans are feeling that, look, we have to do what we need to do to take the next step to win.
He's Buster Olney, and you're in Houston right now, correct?
I am in Houston, yeah, part of ESPN Radio's coverage of the World Series.
All right, well, we'll be able to hear that coverage right here on 104.5 The Team, and Buster, hopefully next week when we talk, we're talking about your favorite team winning the World Series since mine can't.
Who would that be? I don't have a favorite team. They were my favorite team when I was a kid. That went away years ago. Come on.
All right, Little Buster's favorite team.
I'll take that.
All right. Thanks, Buster. We appreciate you.
See you guys.